How do you think about cooking and other preparation when it comes to bioavailability? We talked about that before with spinach and calcium and how, in general, the calcium's locked up in there. But you can use any example like liver or even different plants. Some were naturally going to be more likely to cook in general than others. But how do you look at that from a nutrient standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's there's a lot to that as well. We could spend many hours talking about that. Um, there, I would say, that as a general comment, first of all, cooking typically improves the bioavailability of nutrients. Now, there definitely are some exceptions where cooking actually reduces the content of nutrients, but cooking typically improves bioavailability. And this is, some anthropologists believe that, the invention of fire and our ability to cook food was one of the great evolutionary leaps for our hominid ancestors. Just making nutrients in food more bioavailable through cooking was something that allowed us to, the pace of evolution to increase dramatically. If you think of an animal like a gorilla, they have to spend an inordinate percentage of their daily waking hours eating and chewing because they're consuming these raw, very fibrous foods, and it just takes an enormous amount of their energy expenditure to to be able to access those nutrients, and that's why they have to pretty much be constantly eating. Cooking is one way, in addition to a shift to eating animal foods that have more bioavailable nutrients already, is one way that we were able to shorten the amount of time that we spend gathering and consuming food, and then also give our brains and other parts of our body more nutrition so that we could evolve on a different pace and different time scale than other hominids. So that's kind of a general comment. Um, in There's a great book called Eat Wild by Joe Robinson. It was published many years ago, and she is still, as far as I know, the most comprehensive resource on how preparing foods affects nutrient availability. So, for example, she will tell you in that book how to store lettuce so that it loses less nutritional value. She'll tell you that um, mincing garlic very finely actually reduces more allicin, ALLICIN, which is one of the key antimicrobial compounds in garlic, and one of the things that makes it so potent as a medicinal food. Or if you just eat a whole clove of garlic, or just swallowed a whole clove, let's say, without any chewing, you would access less of that allicin. But if you finely mince that garlic clove before you put it in your food, that actually releases a lot more allicin, and makes it more therapeutic and healthy. So there are a lot of, there are certain sort of nuances like that are important. But I would say generally, for most people, the key takeaways are going back to that food micronutrient bioavailability, micronutrient scale. Animal foods have typically forms of nutrients that are more bioavailable than plant foods. Plant foods have phytonutrients that animal foods don't have. And also in the case of dark leafy greens, for example, have a lot of essential vitamins and minerals. Cooking foods, both animal and plant foods, tends to increase the nutrient bioavailability. Also, chopping, mincing, dicing produce tends to have that effect as well in terms of releasing more of the nutrient content. When it comes to cooking, low temperature methods like stewing or low temperature roasting or slow cooking tend to be less likely to destroy or reduce nutrient values, and they are also less likely to um, introduce any toxins that very high temperature methods of cooking like grilling and charring would do. Now, there are ways you can mitigate that. For example, it's been shown that marinating meat with olive oil and other herbs and spices reduces some of the oxidative damage that can occur when you cook it at a very high temperature. And I think it's fine probably for most people, for most of us to eat, grilled meat occasionally. I just don't think it's a great idea to do that, to only eat meat that way, to only eat steak that's been cooked at 700 degrees on a grill. You should be mixing that with, slow roasted or slow cooked, pork shoulder or beef, chuck roast or stew or some, other lower temperature cooking methods is best to kind of unlock different nutrients, but also avoid some of the downsides that can come from that high temperature cooking.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Most recent research suggests that over 90% of Americans fall short of the optimal intake of not just one, but several micronutrients. This is also true in other developed countries around the world. So there definitely has been a decline.